let's see, the last time I think y'all saw me was with, oh God, what was it? Political Justice League over in Collin County. So if y'all saw me there, great. If you haven't, look me up. My website is Danny for Congress. That's DANI for Congress.com. And I hope to see y'all there. Thanks.
So, what's been going on with your campaign lately? What are the mechanics?
Well, let's see. We just had our first volunteer orientation. Pretty much show up. I'll show you what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. If you think you're good on social media, I'll hook you up on the leader there. If you want to do block walking, all right, here's the dates and times we're going to go for. It was just basically the organization orientation, meeting people up and saying, all right, so what do you want to do? What's your strengths? How can we help, or how can you help the team? So
What was your most recent event?
it kind of turns into a blur because I literally had 3 events in one night, and someone shook
Raising
my
a lot
hand.
of money, I can bet.
Yeah, no, someone shook my hand at the very end of the 3rd event, and I'm like, oh, hi. And I'm like, hi, so good to meet you. And like, we've met before, and I'm like, sorry. So it can turn into a blur, especially when you do more than one event a night. And doing 3 events in a night, definitely just everything goes in a blur. But I am doing really great. Let's see, I think I told you my average donation is like $36.10 right now.
Well, we were actually, we
Yeah.
were going to get deeper into
Mhm.
in your campaign. I wanted wanted you to tell the audience why you're running.
Honestly, I'm running to bring back the best of FDR. I want to be able to point and say, hey, look, we actually had a great New Deal back in 1929 when the Great Depression hit and the economy collapsed, and the government said, it is our job to help you get back on your feet. That's what we need to do again. We need to remember that,
How do you feel about that philosophy in turn? They said that FDR. It was said that FDR wrote a second Bill of Rights, but he never was able. He didn't live long enough to see it come to life. It failed in Congress.
yeah.
Just in kind of in relation to what you were
Well,
getting
no, the
towards.
Second Bill of Rights was seen as very extreme back in the day, because before that we had a very libertarian-based government in the sense of we didn't have regulations, we didn't have Glass-Steagall, we didn't have the things that we had, and it kept the economy stable for decades. And then we repealed it, and then the economy started to crash again, and now we have Dodd-Frank, which the Republicans already want to repeal. So it's a mess. It's like order versus chaos, and sometimes we need to make government work as a system of checks and balances from businesses that are not beholden to the people or to making the economy work for all of us for decades, and they just want to make all the money and risk having an economic collapse.
Well said. And in terms of just for our viewers, listeners might be watching or listening at home, or actually anywhere now, of course. Shout out to our roundtable fans wherever you're listening. I mean, we're glad you're listening. Thank you. We're here with the Congresswoman candidate, Danielle Jessica Pallett. What we're trying to get to is for people who don't believe in socialism, like I wanted you just kind of to expand on like how it already exists in our current society, and what the I guess what I'm trying to get to is people forget that there's still an element to there's still a human element to living life, and making as much money as you want. In my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that, but where the problem comes into play is when you have homeless people, when you have poor people, when you have people in poverty that struggle because of the system. So what do you believe at all that there are any opponents out there that would say, oh well, you just want to take all the money from the rich people and give to the people who don't want to do anything?
I've heard that, and it's not that people don't want to do anything. If you actually go out there and meet people, you realize that everyone actually wants to earn a living. And really what we need to do is shift the focus on how we talk about the issues and say, I'm not, wanting to be a tax and spend liberal. I want to talk about responsible spending of our tax dollars, because guess what? Tax cuts don't fill potholes. And that was the biggest thing that they learned in Nebraska under Governor Brownback. Like, let's just give all the tax cuts in the world, and we can't afford anything now. And the businesses didn't show up because the roads are crap. And They just like, we should do more tax cuts. And even now, the Republican Party in, I think it's Nebraska, yeah, or is it Kansas? It's Brownback State. They were like doing a small rebellion, going, no, we need to actually have an increase in taxes to actually pay for the government systems that are failing right now. Like, if you can't afford to have the water system work, then what are you doing? I mean, the thing that happened in Flint, Michigan is happening all over the U.S. because we're not taking care of our infrastructure, and that is paid for by taxes.
And then let's just take it a step further. Like, what other pathway do people who have less wealth, power, and prestige in America have, but to not so much rely on the government, but to keep a balance? Like, if you weren't, I mean, let's just keep it real. If you weren't born white, if you weren't born, within a certain class or with a certain denomination to Christianity in America, there were a lot of rights that you were denied, or there was just a lot of ridicule that you dealt with in the origins of America. But when it comes to the issue of welfare and social welfare and whatnot, or socialism and social programs, it's like people get people kind of get conflicted. Like, would you rather it be like overseas, like not you, but of course, like, would people rather it be over like it is overseas, where there's third world and there's first world, but no middle class?
I don't want to see us turning into a world of first world and third world in the U.S. One of the things I've noticed is that when you aren't of a privileged position, if you aren't, rubbing elbows with people who will like donate a few $100,000 to your campaign, you're not considered a viable candidate. And that's one of the things that we need to work on. We need to push people who actually work for a living to be in office, not just, oh, I'm a lawyer and I know all these rich people, so therefore I'm a better candidate for office because my money is going to go to this person, and we're going to do more corporate welfare by keeping, minimum wage low. And therefore the businesses that should be raising their minimum wage so that people aren't on food stamps, they're not doing it.
But also understanding like why people are in poverty. It isn't that the people who were laid off during the recession didn't want to work. It's that, well, trickle down economics doesn't work, which I thought you were going to get into it earlier with Reagan. No, you're fine. I thought you were going to get into it with Ronald Reagan saying, trust trickle down economics. And it's like, well, the problem with that is, I mean, in theory, it's supposed to work. Everybody's supposed to get their fair slice of the pie in capitalist America. But unfortunately, like, the double-edged sword in capitalist America is that people who have that wealth and that power, like, they don't want to share it. It's a selfish mentality. They don't, and I don't mean to make statements for people. I just, in my mind, like, how can people, whether you believe in socialism or not, like, if you don't believe in the evolution of humanity, where we've developed a society where we have to protect each other, I think that's just kind of the direction I see just with your campaign, that it's all about people helping people, and instead of the selfish philosophy where you get yours, I'll get mine, and we hopefully don't meet in the middle. That's just not how the human race operates. I don't know if you agree.
If I were able to use a simple phrase to explain my theory in economics, it would have to be, am I my brother's keeper? Because I could go into the intersectionality of things like what happened in Ferguson. It's systemic, and there's like all these things that tie into other things, and we can't just say body cameras on police officers is going to solve it. We can't just say raising minimum wage is going to solve it. We can't just say cracking down on just a criminal element is going to solve it. There were so many things that happened, and it snowballed year after year, generation after generation, that we had an issue where there was a militarized police force, and it's not just there, it's all over, and it hurts the economy overall, and it depresses the ability for businesses to thrive in communities where essentially, well, no one's going to spend money there, so why bother? And unfortunately, when that starts setting in, it causes it down.
That also kind of has a prejudice and a discriminatory. Like we're learning about it now in class in sociology. Like that's really what's going on in in America. Like, we really do look down on certain cultures, to the point that we will not even give them money. And like, but in the same token, you have the same people that are willing to complain about how, oh, so and so want to be, so and so wants him and his family to be on welfare, and they're not even documented. And I mean, at the end of the day, if well, before
That's
we
not even true. We
yeah,
actually have a
it's
law
not.
against giving welfare to undocumented immigrants.
Right.
So it's unfortunate because people will try to make excuse after excuse because they worry that they're going to lose their strength, their power, their affluence if we give stuff away to others. And it's not an us versus them. It's not a all or nothing. It should be a, we're all in this together. And if we're going to have to point fingers at anyone, it's going to be, hey, we have these American citizens who have their money in an overseas illegal tax shelter. It's like, be American, be patriotic. Put your money in a legal tax shelter. I don't care if it has to be New Jersey. Put your money in a legal tax shelter here and pay your fair share of taxes.
Food banks. Why do we have food banks? Because we know that there are poor immigrant and domestic citizens here in the state of Texas that can't afford to pay their bills, can't afford to pay their bills and make sure they eat. And I mean, if we were truly 100% capitalist, we wouldn't have those. I'm looking up right now the bathroom bill, the updates for it in the special session. The critique I have for it just so far on the bathroom bill, I'm reading I believe one of the clauses right now. It says, it is the public policy of this state that residents have a reasonable expectation of privacy when using intimate facilities controlled by a school district, open enrollment charter school, state agency, or political subdivision, and that's protecting the safety, welfare, and well-being of children in public schools, children in open enrollment charter schools, and all Texas residents in intimate facilities controlled by state agencies or political subdivisions is of the utmost priority and moral obligation of this state. This was on texastribune.org. Annotated for the bathroom bill. Okay, my thing is protecting the safety, welfare, and well-being of children. I mean, that's all well and good, and we believe it. I personally think it's important to be safe, and it's important to have it's important for people to have a safe place to learn and be educated. But my thing is, are we only talking about that for the regular students, or the LGBT students? Because someone's left out in the cold.
It first says a reasonable expectation of privacy, which involves them having to apply this by asking, what is your current general configuration? And if that sounds creepy, it is, because honestly, we don't have just, two biological sexes. We have people who are intersex. We have people who transition like me from one gender to the other. And honestly, a bill like this is just a repeating of the same old, dog whistle they used against the gay lesbian community decades ago, saying we can't let those gays and lesbians near our children to teach because you know how they are. Like, that was literally what they used to try to keep gay people from teaching. And even in the Boy Scouts recently, they're just like, we don't want to have gay people there because they might do things to the kids. It's been one of those dog whistles. It's been one of those things that they've used specifically against the LGBT community. And since we've had marriage equality, people are starting to actually know and meet gay people and lesbians and realize that they aren't the child predators. They aren't the monsters coming after the children that they've been told growing up. And now we have them trying one last time with yet another minority, the trans community, because those must be the perverts. And they're not. We're not. And this reasonable expectation of privacy needs to extend into not requiring someone have their papers on them to prove that they were born a certain gender or not. Because guess what? We have conservative people who are women who have short hair. We have conservative girls who have short hair and may not be wearing makeup when they get off of a sports practice. And this is just a stereotype of gender expectations they're going to force on us. I mean, I had people telling me how I was at a anti-Sharia law protest outside of a Muslim center, and I specifically recall hearing these people say, we don't want to be forcing our American citizens to wear burqas. And I was trying to talk to them like, I'm for a secular government. I don't want to have women being forced to look a certain caricature of being feminine, because that is not what America's about either.
Right. Well, I mean, beauty can change. Basically, it can evolve. First off, like the image of what is considered beautiful in America is a very judgmental and ethnocentric perception. But that's a different topic.
Yeah.
At least with the bathroom bill, like, I get it. You want to protect the children, but it's like you can't. In my opinion, I don't know, Danielle, if you
Yeah.
agree, but I don't know how you can protect the children, all of the children, with the bathroom bill, and still be able to sleep at night, because I know that there are churches that have come out in support and against the bathroom bill. But
There's already a law against sexual assault. There's already a law against assault. There's already a law against
But how does
abuse.
you
Yeah.
like, just for the fans at home, like, how do you justify the bathroom bill as stopping a sexual assault from happening, or harassment of some sort? God forbid it happens
Oh,
with
no.
or without the bathroom bill. But
You
how
don't
is it?
justify a law like this, because I recall having to use a conservative talking point against it, and it made all my liberal friends' brains explode when I said,
Mhm.
this bathroom bill saying that we're going to try to protect children from being molested in bathrooms is needed. And I'm like, this doesn't stop actual abuse anywhere any more than saying a gun-free zone stops a school shooting, because criminals don't obey the law, don't obey the signs. So putting up a bill that says, oh, this is going to ban people who are going to abuse children from going to bathrooms. Well, one, they haven't done that yet. And two, a criminal who wants to abuse a child isn't necessarily going to be stopped by that law. I mean, if we really want to talk about an issue where it comes to abuse of children, we need to talk about the people who actually have. We need to look long and hard at people who we know have abused children. We need to talk about former Speaker of the House Denny Hastert. We could talk about the subway dude Jared Fogle. I mean, there's literal documented cases of child abuse, and they looked like straight white men. Also,
Facts are facts. But I mean, here's another dichotomy. If the parents of LGBT kids come out and say, well, oh, my kid's being bullied in school, what are we going to expect the government to do about it now? I mean, if the idea is to protect the children that aren't LGBT, because we have to call it like we see it. If you're gonna come out with a bathroom bill, Texas, and ultimately it didn't take them long in session to pass this. Once the special session happened, I think within 2 to 3 days they'd already passed it.
Mhm.
So, I mean,
on the Senate side, yeah.
yeah, well, on the Senate side, but that's what I'm saying. When bills free flow like that, that means there's not a whole lot of discussion they want to have on it. So that means, at least for the state of Texas, that they really, in my mind, I'm acknowledging it as they're okay with this. There's not a lot of opposition, because the people who are in opposition stay in pockets of Texas. They're not the bulging red that we see as the state of Texas. I don't know if you agree.
On the Texas State Senate, there's 31 Senate districts, and on the preliminary Senate committee that passed it to go to the full Senate, pretty much every Republican voted for it, and one of the Democrats, Senator Lucio from the Rio Grande Valley, a Hispanic, very conservative Democrat, also voted for it. And there's been a lot of pushback there. But Texas is unfortunately a very red state when you start looking at how the state Senate is organized, and the Democrats are simply out.
But the reason I wanted to just jump into that, because I think gerrymandering is another angle too. See, it affects the demographics that have the minorities, like the cultures that aren't that don't control a lot of industries in Texas, and ultimately gerrymandering is supposed to be, in theory, the only true pushback the popular vote really has up against change. Like, if we're going to change Texas from red to blue, hypothetically, it's like, what would it take? Well, obviously it would take a lot of radical, well, Well, I mean, first, let me get your opinion on that.
Well, let's see. We actually have a case going on, and it should be resolved by October at the latest, right before the 2018 elections, that are going to redraw the maps. So I don't know about the rest of the area, but I know in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, the East Dallas area is specifically being looked at because the districts, both for the, I want to say the House, the Senate, and for the U.S. Congress, have been proven that they are designed specifically to suppress the Hispanic and the Asian American votes there. So, like I said earlier, my district is shaped like a donkey.
Do you think that the LGBT also run the risk of struggling in the same capacity?
I'm not certain, and it's only because historically
Like
gerrymandering.
Oaklawn, Turtle Creek. I mean, what's his name? Huffine's the state senator. Like, I mean, yeah, he came out against the bathroom bill, being a Republican, which I thought was very courageous. But you can see again, it fell on deaf ears. They still passed it in the Senate, and they're really still trying to push it forward. And I didn't get the update on the House. Was it pushed through in the House?
No, on the House side, the House leader, Speaker of the Texas State House, I forgot his name right now, but he is like, this will not get passed. He is straight up saying he will not have the blood of any, dead children on his hands. He doesn't want to see any trans people commit suicide or.
But
Yeah.
that's what's courageous about this. It
He's
doesn't.
getting primaried from the right as well.
And again, shout out to to the progressive, left wing or right wing. I mean, just the people out there that really believe that you don't need a party label to stand up for what's right. And I mean, yeah, we can go back and forth all day on whether said culture agrees with the LGBT culture and vice versa. But when we're talking about human beings, like Turtle Creek, Oaklawn, like that area in specific, that's what comes to mind for me.
Yeah.
Just with Dallas, they're taxpayers too, and they deserve to have protection and safety, and the bathroom bill is hurting them.
No, I agree. And the main argument I've seen historically when it comes to gerrymandering is racial bias, which makes me have a lot of hope because there is a case going on in Michigan. It's going to go to the Supreme Court because they didn't use racial bias as the ruling on it. They actually had statistics people come in, have a formula, have a numerical proof that these districts were not just gerrymandered as a racial suppression, but as a party suppression. They literally proved this is being done so Team Red can beat Team Blue, and here's the numbers to prove it, and this is why you can't let people in Congress or draw their own lines for them to get reelected. It is a blatant conflict of interest.
Right. Maybe it's just me. Why aren't more bathrooms unisex?
Honestly, I think that we just had this cultural idealism of there's two genders, there's one and there's the other, and that binary is a binary switch. It's either male or female, and for some people it's more like a dimmer switch. It can be nebulous, and I was in 2005, 2004, lobbying for single occupant gender neutral bathrooms at UNT, and we got it. And I got to walk an extra quarter mile to go to one, but sure beat having to face harassment, arrest. It's just crazy that we have it like this, but that's just the society we live in now. I mean, I've gone to like a club or two here in Dallas where it's like you go into the men's restroom, you go into the women's restroom, and it's the same restroom. And every stall door goes all the way up to the door. They all have great locks. It's just different door to go into the same bathroom, and it's a little funny because you realize, oh, we're all just in here to pee. The way that the Speaker of the House in Texas State is going, it's not going to pass. One of the biggest arguments I've had, though, is that Democrats have thought, how can we package this argument as a cogent way to get Republicans to agree with us? And I've heard there's going to be a boycott. There's going to be economic downturn, that businesses are going to pull out, and it's going to hurt the Texas economy, and you need to think of that. And I honestly think that was probably one of the worst things that we as Democrats and liberals and progressives could do. We are literally saying there's going to be an economic cause and effect. And it's only because the root of the issue when it comes to a Republican perspective that's very patriarchal is, my wife and my daughter are at risk. It's a flawed thought, but that's where it is. And because of that, they think that if I allow these predators access to my children, to my wives, if I don't allow that, then I'm going to have all this economic problems. That is literally putting a price tag on safety. And if we've learned anything since the passing of the Patriot Act under George W. Bush, is that people will give up their freedom for safety, and they will not care what the price tag is, because they literally think that, the queer people are coming after their children, and it's not true. And unfortunately, this argument of, there's going to be a boycott, you're going to suffer financial issues, we've just lost the Super Bowl because of it. Republicans and conservatives aren't going to care. They're going to say, I protected my kids. And it is the worst argument that I've heard. And I'm trying to push we are not the predators. We are not what you think we are. Get to know us.
I think Benjamin Franklin said it best, that those who will trade liberty for security shall have and deserve neither. I'm all for protecting the children and the family. Well, I mean, and then the family values part of it is what gets me. Is family values, they also evolve too. Republicans are all about family value. I don't want to harp too much on the right wing, in general.
They're pushing new laws that are making it harder for people who do transition like me to actually have the gender marker changed.
Right.
So they're like trying to force me to still live as technically legally male, even though I've lived as female for over a decade, even though I've been married to a wonderful woman and we live as open lesbian relationship, even though I've had surgeries. Yes, hi Liv. Hi JJ, I love you. Even though I've had surgeries to conform to my gender, it's not enough for them, because they don't want to accept me. They want to say I am always going to be this confused, perverted boy.
It changes the finish line too. That's the saying I'm used to hearing a lot. It changes the finish line. You have, if you're not the dominant culture in America, then it's like there's always one more sentence you have to dot.
Oh, we can talk about the Tuskegee Airmen anytime.
And so it's always another hurdle to jump over, and I don't know. I don't want to make it about, it's because it's the Republicans. Although I have to say this just to put it to the side. I don't quite know for a fact this would be the same way if we had voted the other person. Now, of course, everybody will take that how they feel, but the laws we're living under, or at least the changes that Trump promised, are happening. You know what I mean? Like, have you had that?
If Trump lost to his Democratic challenger Hillary Clinton, Texas would have still done this bill. It still would have been a backlash. It still would have been we want our country back.
Right. Again, shout out again to our roundtable fans. The ones that are listening. No, I don't think that. Even if Hillary Clinton had won, that this particular issue would be any different, since we're talking just about Texas. But it's just the influence, though. It's just the fact that it's in the ether. Like Immortal Technique talked about how when you come to certain parts of the South, it's like, slavery's over and Jim Crow's over, but it's like you still feel it in the air. You still know that there's someone out there that's trying to stop you from moving forward, and you're already struggling just being a minority. We definitely are going to try to stay as up to date as we can. Like I said, it passed the Senate. It's still in the House right now, in the State House.
It's
Life goes
Strauss. On. He's the top guy in the Texas State House. Is Strauss, S-T-R-A-U-S. That's his name.
Strauss. Most recently, President Donald Trump announced that he planned, this on CNN, that he plans to reinstate a ban on transgender individuals from serving in any capacity in the U.S. Armed Forces. Okay, what did we just get through talking about? Red states, gerrymandering, racism, oppression, all of that.
Scapegoat.
Right.
Actually, a little bit about my history. I founded the first transgender student organization at UNT to lobby for gender-neutral single-occupant bathrooms. That came around because I was 2 months away from field training and a commission in the Air Force. I wanted to be a pilot, and back then, under George W. Bush, there was a pilot shortage, and they said, if you want to be a pilot in the Air Force, that's a 10-year commitment. It's not just a 4-year. You would have to be in there for 10 years. It's 20 years for a retirement. So I was thinking, why not make an entire 20 years? I was looking into being a pilot for the Air Force. under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and I knew I would have to lie about my gender identity. So I thought long and hard about it, but one of the first things
You think that's fair?
to
I mean, it's like don't ask, don't tell. That culture in itself was like a counterculture to the culture that already existed.
Mhm.
They were basically saying that we don't want LGBT,
Yeah.
and that's how they were letting them in. It's like, do you think that's? It's like, how do you feel about that?
Well, ever since I was in high school, I did 4 years of junior ROTC and 2 in college, and the Air Force's #1 core value was integrity first. You know, be honest to yourself and be honest to others. So, I had to literally think, am I going to lie to serve my country and, sell out my integrity, or am I going to keep my integrity and not serve because Don't Ask, Don't Tell was around? And the #2 core value of the Air Force was service before self. So I was set up in this really bad catch-22 of lie to serve your country because service is more important than yourself, or your integrity is most important because it's the #1 core value, and you can't serve. And I was in this mental state where I couldn't decide whether or not I needed to essentially lie about myself and suppress my gender identity for a decade or maybe 2 in order to serve. And it was around then when I started questioning everything I believed in, because back then maybe I'm a libertarian-leaning conservative, and we were firing our Arabic translators as we were going into Iraq for being gay. And Don't Ask, Don't Tell was being enforced heavily as we were going into Iraq. And I thought, this is the most crazy thing I've ever heard, because why would we fire and drum out the Arabic translators if we are going in to free a country? And I didn't even agree with the weapons of mass destruction thing. I was going to question, and I was questioning everything I believed in back then. I literally turned off the Fox News and decided I'm going to pick up the most left-wing thing I could find. I picked up Air America Radio with Rachel Maddow and Bernie Sanders. And I questioned everything I believed in, and I realized that if we want to defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, our domestic policy of firing our troops for being gay is hurting our country overall, and it's hurting our military. And that is what pretty much turned me into being the LGBT activist I am today. And because of that, I started that trans group. I started trying to find ways of protecting, my brothers and sisters under the trans flag, and I'm glad I did that. But I gave up an ability to serve my country, and it's something that still kind of bothers me today because I really wanted to do it. And under Obama, they repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but the transgender ban was still there because the DSM-4, DSM-5, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual.
Said it was a behavior? It was a behavior disorder?
Well, it's just they had a classification for it, so it's according to this book that all the shrinks use, you're crazy, therefore we can't let you in. And I'm like, really? So finally, at the very end of Obama's administration, they started repealing it to allow people who are transgender to serve openly, which I thought was great because, if you have, say, an allergy, you go to the doctor, they give you a prescription, you get back information, and you run and do your PT. That's all it has to be. If you're transgender, you go to a therapist, you get your prescription, you take your hormone regimen, you start to transition, you get back and do PT. If you ask people who are openly serving today, trans or not, gay or not, they're going to say they want to be trans, cool. You can't necessarily transition while you're deployed. You can't necessarily, oh, here's a funny thing.
Mhm.
Did you know that if you are serving in the U.S. military and you are a woman and you complain that your body armor is too tight because your boobs are too big, you can get a chest reconstruction surgery paid for by Uncle Sam.
And by chest reduction, we're talking breast reduction,
Breast reduction,
I assume.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So really, if we have people who are transitioning from female to male to be in the U.S. military and they want to do the same thing, that's apparently not allowed.
Just like what we said earlier with the context of the bathroom bill. Well, we want to protect kids. It's like, well, okay, what about the LGBT kids? You're not protecting them. The hypocrisy just it doesn't make sense really, because if you'll give a straight woman breast reduction just for because she can't help how her body was developed, so that's not her fault. But I mean, if you're a person that says, oh well, I'm a male but I identify with with being female, it's like, how is that any different?
I don't know. I mean, There can be arguments for the amount of time that you would be recovering from a surgery below the waist, which we can argue about. But what happened is Trump said that no one who is trans can serve. And because of that, that is just beyond the pale. And that is an insult to our troops.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think that's supposed to do for I mean, just getting your pulse on it right now? I don't know if you have any LGBT that you know that are in the military
I do.
currently. Yeah, like what do you think, or what's the the buzz about it now? Like LGBT that are currently in probably aren't going to be able to renew their contract. So if they're out about it, at least. So
Yeah, I was so proud to hear people who are like active duty getting to march in pride parades as a military formation. Now, if you've ever seen a parade, you see how people like, go all crazy and throw beads and whatnot. That's not how the U.S. military acts in a parade, but this is me, 4 years of color guard, like American flag, Texas flag, color guard, not, the band color guard. When they march in parades, it is with military cohesion, it is structured, it is regimented, but there is a unifying thing that goes there, and it's amazing. So when I got to hear that the U.S. military was going to march in a pride parade, I was like, good for y'all, because that is a cohesive thing. You could be gay, you could be straight, you could still march in it if you volunteered to be in the pride parade. And now it's like you just march in the pride parade, and they're coming after the trans people. And you may have just come out as being, gay or lesbian or bisexual. It's scary to think of, like, they're going to say, well, now we can't trust you in the showers because you might go after them. Because that's literally what I think is going to happen next. Like, right now they're talking about trans people in bathrooms. They're going to go after gays and lesbians in the bathroom next because you know how those people are. That's the dog whistle they used back then, and they're going to use it again.
well, and then I wanted to so we have in 2015 the Supreme Court they now rule it unconstitutional to reject LGBT marriage and LGBT adoption. Then a year later we have the Pulse nightclub scene, and then right around that, or as time kind of fast forwarded a little bit more, we had the Chelsea Manning case. Where I mean, we didn't really know what was going to happen to her. I mean, like some pretty courageous actions. But at the same time, there were laws that were broken. So, all of these different, and then of course, and then we get to
She broke the law, but she also was like put in solitary confinement for so long that was literally torture.
right, and I agree. But I mean, now, like as we seeped out of that and get into the bathroom bill, and then into now where we're at, Trump's ban on the transgender joining the military. It's like, is there not a pattern happening? Like are we clearly seeing a consistency of events that are leading to a bigger
It's a
outcome?
backlash. The next thing I've noticed is I think the Texas State House under Colhorst is pushing a law to say, okay, so yeah, y'all can be married, but we're not going to give you the state benefits because we don't want to give our money to this union because we don't think it's the same as marriage. I mean, it's literally this, I think it's like the same HERO ordinance almost. They're trying to say that our money for, let's say, I'm thinking of like pension or for survivor benefits doesn't need to go to gay married couples because they're not married couples. They're just it's not like a straight marriage. It's not the same. It's just can we not give our state money to that? That's literally the Colhorst thing. I think it's Colhorst, but that's like another bill that's going on at Texas state level. They're trying to make a dividing line of like straight marriage and gay marriage. It's not marriage equality. It's our marriage, and we're not going to let the state's money go to this marriage, and it needs
It's
to
the
be
technicality of basically just discriminating.
pretty much. And I'm fairly certain that it is still unconstitutional on its face, but they're going to try to push it.
And I really wouldn't be surprised, especially since it's Texas. And I think it was Ted Cruz when he got in an argument with Ellen Page a while back, saying no, like we're protecting the rights of businesses and churches because they have rights too. And I mean, we're talking about, at least when he named that, it's like we're talking about elements that get government funding, can get tax incentives, can get around the tax system in general, and just make as much money as they want. Those are in my mind, the churches and the institutions that are well respected and well developed. I don't think, a bill, a bathroom bill or a ban, on a specific demographic hurts them. So how
That
at all
entire
would they
concept
understand?
of religious freedom for an organization or for a church is ridiculous, because I think I made the argument of you can't have a right unless the state of Texas can put you in an electric chair and kill you. And therefore, corporations can't be people because Texas can't put one on death row.
Yeah. With corporations, like, they have the same rights as people, so, but at the same time, they can be protected, in the same capacity as, there's just so much inconsistency in how the law, like, chooses to bend itself for said culture or said perspective.
If we can't put Nestle in jail for the next 30 years for violating the water draw ban over in California, then they're not a person. So I don't know
Right.
if you've been following that, but like California had this really bad drought, and companies like Nestle are supposed to pay for a permit to drain water from the aquifer in order for them to use for what they're making their water. And
Right.
apparently,
Well, California water level, I think, is within the next 10 years going to go, like, underground, isn't
Mhm.
it? Yeah.
and with Nestle, apparently they did not bother even updating or renewing their permit for getting water out of it for like the last 30 years, because government is just not enforcing the laws that they already have on the books. So, and this is an issue. This has been like a long-term thing of conservatives going, we want less government, we want less government, we want less regulation. And now we see that we've had a company that's been taking water away from a drought-stricken area, and where are the regulators? Well, they've been essentially defunded and shut down.
Like, that's an interesting point. With the bathroom bill and with Trump's LGBT ban in the military, it's like, well, the Republicans are always the ones talking about small government and less government intervention. It's like, well, they're the ones using the government to make it harder for other demographics to get the same options, opportunities, and benefits that they have. So,
Financial anarchy.
indeed,
That's their goal, is to have anarchy when it comes to finances, when it comes to taxes, when it comes to having to pay for anything. They want anarchy there. They don't want to have oversight. They don't want to have anything that stops them from having all the money they want. But when it comes to social issues, a way that they can drive a wedge, or the way that they can point to someone and say, all the reasons why you feel bad and that you're threatened is because of this person, then yeah, they're going to go after that. And there's a term for this. It's called fascism.
any shout outs you have left? Anybody you want to, anything you want to?
Actually, I've got an event tomorrow night. It's at Afra's. It is a Mediterranean restaurant over in Richardson. Come on out tomorrow night and meet me. I'm going to be doing these I'm going to be doing 2 events a month. You can look it up at the calendar on DannyForCongress.com. Look me up at Danny J. Pellet on Twitter, or just look up, Danny for Congress on Facebook.
Remind us who you're running against.
Oh yeah, I'm running in the 32nd district, the donkey-shaped district, against Pete Sessions. And the map's probably going to change in October, so watch out, because the entire thing's going to change. And if it changes, then it's probably going to change in a really good way, and Sessions is going to move on north to Sam Johnson's old seat.
All right, we're here with Danielle Jessica Pallett of the U.S. Congress 32nd District.
Mhm.
Appreciate it. Hopeful to be, and definitely check out her campaign, for more details and whatnot. That'll do. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for listening.